You're listening to the Built in Barcelona podcast with Kris. Welcome to Built in Barcelona, the podcast where we explore the stories behind the people shaping Barcelona's tech and creative scene. I'm Kris Rawcliffe, and today we're diving into the world of brand design and creative leadership with someone who has not only left her mark on some of Barcelona's most well-known startups, such as Typeform, but is also championing female leadership in the design industry through her own design studio, Aran. Claudia, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kris.
For those who might not know you yet, how would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm a graphic designer, born and raised in Barcelona. I worked in both design studios and startups in the tech space, like Typeform, that is in Barcelona, and Flodesk, which is like remote international company. And there I focus on branding and digital design. And now I run Aran Studio, where I help brands define their identity and grow with strong branding systems.
So you mentioned you're born and raised in Barcelona, so you obviously have deep roots here in the city. What was it like growing up here?
I loved it. I think that Barcelona is full of design and art, and for me as a creative person, I love everything that the city offers. I have a big family. All the family lives in Barcelona, so it was also very exciting, or I have it as a happy memory to have all my family and friends in the city, and they still live in the city, which I think that for some people, I have friends that their families are just like living in many different places. And of course, like some of my friends and family don't live here anymore, but most of them live. And I think that is, for me, one of the best things about the city, having my people close.
That's lovely because, well, in the UK, where I'm from, that's less common. So people tend to live a little bit more dispersed and not typically in the same place as the rest of their family. And as you know, my wife is Catalan. She's from here, and we live, on the same street as her sister, around the corner from her parents. And that's been quite unusual for me, but it's also lovely. I was also really struck when I moved here compared to London, for example, which is full of young people. Most people in London are in their sort of mid-30s and below. You don't see that many older people in London. And I was really struck when I moved here by the mix of all ages, generations, seeing, sort of elderly people in the street. And I wasn't used to that.
But I think that it's very interesting. Like I've been on the like past months or years, I've been thinking if I wanted to move from Barcelona, live somewhere else or stay in the city. And this is what's been harder for me, just to leave my people. I know that you still can visit them or you can even invite them if you're going to another place. But I think that what's making me stay in the city is my family and friends, that they are all here.
I think getting older, I see the appeal of that more and more, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's, one thing living here as an expat that is tough is being far away from family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's only a 2-hour flight back to the UK, but, increasingly as get a bit older, that's becoming more and more distant. So I completely empathize with that. And you mentioned also about sort of being part of Barcelona's creative scene. What do you think is one aspect of the creative scene here that people from outside might not realize or expect?
I think that there's a lot of art in Barcelona, but in Spain, I would say that maybe you'll have more museums and more art in Madrid because it's the capital. But what I like from Barcelona is that there's a lot of design. And for me as a designer, I feel this very, inspiring and exciting. There might not be like big global agencies, like maybe bigger cities like New York or London, but there's a lot of like small boutique design studios. And I think that this makes people work in a different way in terms of design. Maybe they are not looking for these like big clients or big name brands, but more like, of course, like there's also this type of projects, but I also see a lot of projects that maybe are in a smaller scale, but then they are more meaningful or playful or creative. And I think that at least what I see is that a lot of people here, when they work in the design field, they are more willing to take risks because the projects are a bit different. And that's something that I really like from the projects that I see happening in the city. And I'm also seeing, like, in the past years, I saw a lot of startups and tech companies growing. I think that Barcelona is becoming a hub for startups and tech companies. So it's nice also to see this intersection between branding and digital design. Like, for instance, Typeform, Globo, or Wallapop are companies from Barcelona, and I think that they invest heavily in branding and UX, UI, which is really nice to see because not all tech companies invest in design properly.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like, I think particularly Typeform has a really strong brand identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting what you were saying about kind of the creative influences here in Barcelona. Like, obviously, I mean, it's steeped in history, right? You've got, like, going back to Gaudi,
Mm-hmm.
and the architecture here in Barcelona is really emblematic and really well known worldwide, and so does have that name of being a design focused city. How do you think that's influenced you as a designer?
I always admire Gaudi's work. I know that it's a common thing to say when you're in Barcelona, you think of Gaudi, but I think that what Gaudi did to the city was defining an identity to the city. There's a lot of European cities that they are not the same, but they look alike, the aesthetics, the type of buildings, and so on. And I feel that Barcelona has a different mark, and that's because of Gaudi. So I can see this connection to the work I do in branding because at the end of the day, I also work to define identities that are unique for my clients. So I would say that Gaudi's been an inspiration for me, even though we might have a different style.
Let's rewind a bit then. So what first sparked your passion and interest for design and branding?
I I honestly can't remember that what sparked the interest in design and branding because since I was a kid, I was also drawn to anything artistic. Like, I spend my weekends or afternoons painting, making things with my hands, crafting, and it's how I had fun. And I also grew up in a family full of, like, designers and architects. Not my parents. My dad is an engineer and my mom is a biologist. But part of my family, like cousins, uncles, and aunts, they are designers or architects. So I think that in a way, since very little, I was in conversations about art, design, and aesthetics in general. So I think I always knew that I wanted to do something artistic. I consider architecture because I really like architecture, but I'm not good at maths. So I think that that wasn't the plan. So yeah, like, I always loved art, history, design history, fine arts, and I think it just made sense for me to study design.
Okay. I didn't realize that you were surrounded by creatives in your family.
Yeah.
That well, clearly had an influence on you, and you felt the draw towards that.
Mm-hmm.
Then fast forwarding a little bit, you spent years leading brand design at Typeform and later Flodesk. What
Mm-hmm.
were some of the biggest lessons from working in these fast growing companies?
I think the biggest lesson is speed. Things move very quickly in startups and you need to be adaptable and efficient. There's no much time for perfectionism in terms of branding. And that was hard for me at the beginning because I really value quality over quantity. I like to do things well. But yeah, I think that working in these environments, I also learned what was important and what wasn't, and where I needed to put my focus on doing really good work and other things. Not that it didn't have to be good, but I had to learn different ways of working on them to be able to produce faster um, and yeah, like, to keep up with the speed that the company was asking for.
Yeah. Oh no, I can imagine that, especially in these kind of fast growing markets, right? Like,
Mhm.
also they have a mentality which I wonder, does this affect brand as well? There's kind of fail fast mentality in the tech business. To your point around perfectionism, like, there's a growing trend over the last few years in tech of, like, don't put something out that's perfect, just put something out fast and test it and get
Mhm.
some feedback from users, etc. Does that impact branding as well?
I think it does, and also, like, product and brand. I think that there are some good things about it because I guess that in any like field, like there's always and you can always do better, and at some point you just need to like put a stop and launch. But design, it happens a lot that there's like when you've seen a piece for too long, you always want to like improve and change, or like you just get a bit tired of it and you want to do it again. So it's good to have this speed also to be able to just produce, test, and then see what works and what doesn't. Like it's okay to do things a bit faster to test them, as long as later you go back to the project and do them properly. Because at the end of the day, who is gonna use it? It's gonna be the user or the member, and then you want them to have a good experience. And this happens with product and brand, to be honest. Like if you don't do well a campaign, it won't have the same effect. So I always try to push for good quality things. That doesn't mean that you need to spend 3 months doing it, but doing it well. And sometimes less is more. So you don't need to spend a lot of time. You just need to do it properly.
Yeah, yeah. And is there a project or a piece of work from that time of your career at either Typeform or Flodesk that you're most proud of?
Yeah, I think that my favorite one was the rebrand that we did at Flowdesk. When I joined, we had a brand, but we were growing the team. So we had a brand, as you understand, of like we have a logo, we have a typography, we have beautiful color. It was this, it wasn't very solid. And we needed some brand systems or toolkits that we could use to be able to produce faster and do more work. So the project that we did with Dia, that it was the design studio that helped us developing this, the new brand for Flowdesk, first was to really understand how we wanted to speak to our members and how we wanted to represent ourselves, but also to be able to have these systems and toolkits to produce faster while being consistent, having good quality products or like assets, and yeah, keeping up with the speed that the company was asking for.
I remember following your journey and seeing the branding assets in New York. So like all the billboards and all of that around all of the new branding, and I remember thinking that was a really cool piece of work.
Yeah, that was a very nice project, and I really like it because we collaborated with copywriters in marketing team, also designers and motion designers. We didn't have much time, but I think that we all aligned very well on the messaging, what we wanted to convey with the campaign. And because we had this system that we built up with Dia before on the branding, everything was very clear. We didn't waste time thinking how we wanted to do things. It was just like putting the brand identity there, present it to the world, and see it in the streets of New York, which I
Wow.
wasn't there in person, but one of my colleagues went and she said that it was really nice.
Wow. Yeah, what an amazing thing as a designer to see your work up on billboards in New York. I mean, that's got to
Yeah.
be a pretty top level achievement.
Yeah, totally.
Amazing. And so when did you realize that you wanted to step out on your own and start Aran Studio?
I think I've been in a roller coaster about this. When I was studying, I wanted to own my design studio and start my own thing. I think it's very common in design studio students to just want to like own a studio and be the best one in the world. But when I finished my studies and I started working with design agencies, and also that later that I went to the startup world, I I think I changed a bit my perspective on this because I was learning a lot and I love that. And I think it's very important that before you start your own thing, you learn from people. So I think that just the need of starting something on my own faded a bit. I was just learning a lot, having fun also at work, working with people from a lot of different places in the world. Because what I think that one of the nicest things of the startup environment is that you meet people from many different countries. At that point, I decided that maybe that wasn't the thing that I wanted to do, starting my own design studio. But in the previous company, Flowdesk, when we work on the branding, I really enjoyed working with Dia and seeing the branding process and branding projects. So I think that I got a bit of inspiration from them. And I just it excites me to work on this type of projects. Not that that I didn't like anymore what I was doing in tech, but I think that yeah, I just started thinking again of how would it be if I was focusing only on that. And I think also like a bit of the bad thing is not that it's bad, but the thing that I like the less working in a startup as a brand designer, especially when you have a more like senior or lead position, is that you start doing a bit of the same always. Sometimes you have campaigns and these are more like one-off things and you can innovate a bit more and so on. But for instance, at Flowdesk, after doing the rebrand, we're just producing assets that needed to be consistent on the brand, but it was a bit less creative for me. So I think that it's great when you're learning doing these things, and there's still a lot of interesting things that you can do in tech companies if you work in a brand team. But yeah, I just felt that I just wanted to go back to work with clients and building identities and working on brand projects. So yeah, I just started thinking about it and I just thought that if I want to do it, I think now's the time of doing it. I think that it's hard to make this decision, especially because I didn't had any client confirm, so there was no
Wow.
guarantee that that would work. But I felt that I didn't had anything to lose at this time. I think that I'm still young, or I hope that. So yeah, if I wanted to try it, and now it was the time that I don't have big responsibilities. I just decided to do it. And luckily, it's been less than a year and I already have 8 clients.
Wow.
So I'm very happy about it.
Wow, that's amazing. So you went from you took the leap with no clients, and in the space of a year, you managed to get 8.
Yes,
That's
yes.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Wow,
and
well
all of
done.
them are very different in different fields, and I'm learning a lot from all of them. I think that that was also something scary about making this change. That maybe before I was working with a lot of people, so I was learning a lot, and I felt that if I was going by myself, maybe I would stop learning. And you learn different things, but I think that I'm learning way more now because I just need to figure this out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. And what do you think? What was the scariest part of making that leap to go on your own?
I think that it was just leaving a stable, well-paid job.
Yep.
Yeah, especially because I didn't have any client. So I think that a lot of people that make this change, of course, there's people like me that they just decide to take the risk and do it. And I think that there's a lot of people that are very, I don't want to say brave, but I feel they are more brave than I am. I think that I'm not that good in taking risks. So for me, it was the scariest part because the way that I would have done it is, okay, I work at Flowdesk. I try to do some things as a freelance. I get some clients and then I start my design studio. But I think that also because it was a tech company that everything was going super fast. And also I was design director, so I needed to manage big projects. And also it's an area that is creative. At the end of the day, if I wanted to work on my own things, my brain was tired. I couldn't do
Yeah.
any more creative work. So yeah, I just decided to start it from zero,
Wow.
but that was the more scary part. Yeah.
Well, I have to say that is incredibly brave, because most people do starting a side project whilst working on other projects and building it up slowly over time and jumping when they see that it's going to work. The fact that
Hmm.
you jumped straight into it with none of that is incredible, to be honest. And for you to have had so much success so early, I think speaks to your competence as a designer as well as clearly the impact that some of your previous work had had.
No, thanks. Thanks. I think that it's also like, to be honest, I had savings. I saved a bit before making this decision. I think that now, especially in social media, we heard a lot of these talks of like, just do your own thing, take risks. Like if you just manifest it, it will happen. And the world is hard. Like it's a lot of people is looking for jobs. And I think that if you work hard, things go well, but it's also not that easy. I did this in a safer space because I saved for a bit of money to be okay if for some months I didn't have work. Honestly, like I left Flowdesk in end of June. And I was like, okay, it's fine. Maybe I'll have a perfect summer in Europe, enjoying going to the beach every day. And I didn't go to the beach once because I got two clients already. So just working very hard. But yeah.
A victim of your own success, Claudia. Yeah. And like, so you've been running for about a year, is that right?
Yes, almost a year.
Almost a year. What's been the most exciting part of that past year?
I think that it's been everything about like building the studio, defining how I want to run the studio, figuring out pricing, all these learnings that scared me a bit has been very exciting because I see that I'm learning a lot. So yeah, I just think that every project that I have or every client that I meet it's an opportunity. Yeah, I would say that that's the more exciting part. Also, like collaborating with people, I knew that I couldn't do this on my own. So even though I don't have a team, like a solid team yet, I have someone working with me. I also collaborate with designers, motion designers, brand strategies. So it's been developers as well. It's been great to just like find the right people for each project, meet new people, and like shaping what I want Aran Studio to be in the future in a smaller scale.
I'm very excited to see where all of this goes as I follow your journey. One of the things that jumped out to me when I was doing a bit of research before this conversation is that you talk a lot about design maturity within brands. Just wondering if you could explain what that means and why it's important.
Yeah, so I think that design, how I like to describe it is design maturity is how well a brand understands design or understands and integrates design into the business. So as I was saying before, some companies see branding as just like a logo or a website or some colors or a typography palette. But I think that a good branding or good design is a strategic tool that impacts everything from marketing, product, customer experience, and any area that your business has. So the more mature a brand is in design, the more cohesive and impactful it becomes. So it's basically like all the experience that you will have with your product, your service, or your brand, not only like the identity itself.
Okay, so not only just, as you said, like the logo and the website and the color palette, but going really deep into all aspects of the company and all the touch points, right?
Exactly, exactly. That's what I like to work a lot on brand strategy before diving into design work. Because if you invest well on brand strategy, then you know how you want to speak to your audience, how you want the brand to represent yourself, and all the design decisions later are way easier. And also, I think that the collaboration with the client is better. The client understand why you're doing things that way. And it's not just, oh, I'm designing this logo or I'm defining this color just because I like it. It's because it will work well with your brand because of color psychology and all these things.
Yeah, based on the research done up front, right?
Exactly. So the collaboration is much better as well with the client if you work with a brand strategy and with this mindset when
Okay.
building a brand.
And what do you think many companies or startups get wrong when it comes to brand identity and design?
I think it's what we were saying before, like trying to build something fast and not paying much attention to what they're building and how they're building it. I see this not only with brand, but also with product design. And it really makes a difference if you have a product that is hard to use and it's not visually appealing. Most probably people won't want to use it because it's just like, it's a pain. So with brand, it happens a bit of the same. And I also think that a lot of companies, they follow trends and they don't think of differentiation. I don't
Uh-huh.
know how to say
Yeah,
that.
differentiation. Yeah.
Uh, so, so yeah, basically, I would recommend to really invest on brand strategy first and branding because I think that this is what it will differentiate themselves.
And so if a company is just starting on their brand journey, they're just starting to invest in branding, what's the first thing that they should focus on?
Defining who they are, like all the strategy aspect that I was saying, I think that if they define who they are, what they stand for, who they want to speak or be perceived, that foundation makes all the design decisions easier later.
Okay. And are you in the 8 companies that you've worked with in the last year, have you had the opportunity to work with anybody at that beginning stage?
For bigger projects, I try to pitch brand strategy because it's very important. And we've worked one of my favorite projects that I work with that we're about to launch.
Mm.
We collaborated with a brand strategist specifically for that because it was a rebranding project. So the company had a brand already and they wanted to do a brand refresh to really show their expertise, their professionalism, and yeah, like to have a different face. And to do that, we needed a brand strategy because we really needed to understand the product, the company, and how they wanted to be perceived. There are other clients that I had that maybe they didn't have as many resources, so we did brand strategy in smaller scales.
Okay.
But I always like to do the exercise with the client where we sit down, we do kind of a workshop to understand how they want to be perceived. So even if it's with a specialist, a brand strategist, because there's people that they only like do this, or just like internally in the studio with like some exercise, we always try to define this to start with a solid base.
Yeah. Oh, great. So you like with one of your clients that you're just about to launch the rebrand, you had the opportunity to do things as you would want, right?
Yeah.
Starting at the beginning, identifying their identity and building from there.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's very interesting to see that the process. We interviewed clients from my client, but also people that's working in the company to understand their point of view. So it's you have a lot of learnings from that, and it's even if it's not the part that I focus the most, it's one of my favorite parts because I learn a lot from the client as well.
And beyond your own agency, what are trends that you're seeing in branding and design at the moment? What's the most exciting aspects of this industry right now?
I don't believe a lot in trends because I think that trends come and go, and I see a lot of designers working in trends. But I've seen shifts on how branding works right now. You now see a lot of motion, and this is really nice to see. I feel that brands are more alive now, and like we live in a world that everything is digital, right? So if you have a static brand, you will just not stand out or you will stand out less. So I think that's really a nice thing to see in branding that brands feel more playful and more alive.
Okay. And do you think technologies like AI are impacting that? Because it's now way easier to put those kind of assets together, right? For more and more companies are able to do that without having to have motion designers in-house or through an agency.
Yeah, I think that like it's a powerful tool and we're just starting on this, so maybe my answer will change in 2 months. I think that if you don't have a lot of resources and you're starting your own business and yeah, you just want to try something out, use AI because it will unlock you. But AI just takes whatever has been done and do other variants. So if you really want to differentiate yourself, you won't get something unique and meaningful with AI. And there are tools that help you with motion or with even branding. But for now, it's not the same as if you work with an expert.
Yeah.
For now, I
For
hope it
now,
doesn't
yeah.
change because then we need to reinvent ourselves.
Yeah, but you're right though. Like I think that is absolutely correct with regards to creative pursuits. That AI is only able to replicate what's been done before, and that will
Mhm.
get us so far. But we're also, I think, running the risk of like right now AI is so new that it's using human creativity as the basis for what it does. But if you fast forward 10 years and it's looking at the last 10 years worth of content created and most of that was from AI, then it just becomes like this cyclical thing where no new input's being put in.
Exactly.
I think it's going to be a very interesting future for the design and creative industries to combat that, as well as I think there's probably going to be a little bit of a pushback on kind of the AI generated content, as there already is.
I think that we need to change the mindset, right? Like I think that people is using AI to do all their work and they don't even review it. And then it's clear that you've been using AI. But if you use it as a tool, I think that it's a very interesting and powerful tool, and it can unlock you from even like in creative projects. It can give you ideas and you can explore more from that. Yeah, but it's a hard conversation, right? Because I think a lot of people is a bit scared about it.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I think you're right. I think using it, like I also use it in my business. I've used it in setting up this podcast, it's
Mhm.
almost like a sparring partner, testing ideas and getting some feedback on different things, which is super valuable. But at the end, I think it's very important that you still decide things on your own and you still add your own flavor to things.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that my accountant is loving that I use AI for like questions about this because I just like ask everything to ChatGPT and then if I have doubts, I ask him. But if not, I would be every day calling him like, am I doing this right?
yeah. And what's your vision for Aran Studio in the coming years?
I would like to grow the studio, but not having like a big studio or agency. I would like to have a team because I like to work with people. I don't like to work by myself. So at least for now, it's working well because I was saying I collaborate with a designer and then I also collaborate with external people depending on the project. So I would like to have a bit of more like solid client network that allow me at least to hire a couple of people and then build a small team. And I would like to continue focus on good work working with clients that value design, which for now it's working great. But yeah, that's what I'm envisioning for the next at least 3 years in the studio. But at least for now, I don't want to grow in like a big agency or I think that this is how it's going to work better now in design studios as well, having like small teams and then collaborating with a big network of professionals depending on each project.
I think it also then allows you to stay engaged with the projects, right? And be involved in
Exactly.
that creative process as opposed to just becoming a manager of a business.
Exactly. Because I really like designing and thinking of the concept when we started branding. I think that one of my favorite parts of a branding project is when you have like the brand strategy in place, then studying this and trying to represent it graphically, think of a solid concept that then develops the whole identity. And this is something that I really enjoy. And I think that if your company goes too big, at some point you're just a manager and you have people doing that for you, which is good as well if you want to do that, but it's not where I want to go.
Clearly, you're doing very well. 8 clients in your first year is a great start. So I'm sure that there's going to be more projects coming for you in the
Hopefully.
future. Um, I want to talk now a little bit about being a female founder in the design industry. It was International Women's Day not that long ago, and I saw a very interesting LinkedIn post from you in which you said that only 0.1% of creative agencies are women owned. When you see that number, what does it make you think?
It makes me mad. Um, it's wild, this number. I knew about this years ago that Jessica Walsh, which is a very well-known designer, published it. And I think that I was still studying. I was hoping that this would change, but I was checking some articles on a site called Kerning the Gap that explains about this, and it's still the same. It says that there's a bigger percentage for women in director roles is 17, but still is quite low, knowing that 60% of graphic designers are women. So in my career, most of the students were women, and still the numbers don't match. So yeah, it's sad to be honest, and I don't it's not because women are not capable. I think that there's just like these systemic barriers that is making it harder. So there's a lack of role models, funding, and networks that support women in leadership. And this needs to change.
And so what do you think the industry needs to do to support women in reaching these leadership roles?
I think that they need to, like, to be honest, like, I think that when you're hiring people in your company or your team, and I'm seeing this myself now, like, I can hire women on purpose, but I also want people that are talented and that do good work. So I don't think that we need to only hire women because they're women. You need to look for someone that is talented, because both men and women, we can do the same, right? But knowing this difference and this big gap, I think that if you have the opportunity to hire women, at least I'm like doing that. I'll hire a woman just to try to bridge this gap and make this change. So I think that we need to talk more about it. People need to be more aware about this, and we all need to be more proactive to changing that.
And what challenges have you personally faced as a female leader?
I think imposter syndrome is my biggest one. I think it's common, not only in women, but I spoke with men and women, and I've seen this uh, more common in women. But I think that you just need to be open about it. Surround yourself with people that push you to grow and do better.
And are you seeing that in Barcelona, in the design industry? Do you feel like you have that support network of women in the same industry as you?
Yeah, I see a lot of initiatives. I listen. There's a podcast from Hey Studio. Hey Studio is a design studio from Barcelona, founded by Veronica Fuerte, and she also runs a podcast called Women at Work, and they invite a lot of women creatives to talk about their work and their experience in the design industry. And I like to see these things because then they are just like showing and giving more opportunities to these people. So I see this collaboration in Barcelona, also outside, to be honest. And I'm trying to join more like communities for women, also to be able to engage with people that is trying to make this difference. I have two friends from Flodesk that we are still inspiring a lot each other, because we're also like sharing resources and articles and things that are interesting. They are not designers, but they also work in the creative field. And we all join a community called OGC, Old Girls Club, which is being really good. It's a community only for women, and there's a lot of resources and like articles. They publish a lot of like job offers. It's been game changer, especially now that I started my studio, because I feel that I'm learning a lot there. There's also a lot of information that I don't have time to read, because it's like every day it's like just full of things. But it's inspiring to see these things happening.
And you've talked about how Aran Studio actively collaborates with women-led organizations and talent. What do you think has been the impact of that choice?
I just feel better about it because I know that there's this gap. I don't see a difference because as I was saying, like women and men, we can do the same. So if I had good and bad experience working with men and women. So I think that what's mattered is that you collaborate with people that are talented and that are kind. It's also very important. I don't see a difference working with women because, yeah, I think that we're just capable of the same. But I feel better that I'm making a difference on this issue and this problem on the design industry.
And that, yeah, you're contributing towards the future that you want to see. And
Exactly.
to your point of being disappointed at seeing those numbers not changing since you had first heard them when you were a student, being part of the solution to that, right? So switching gears slightly now, just to talk about what it's like living here in Barcelona. So when you're not working very hard on Aran Studio, what's your perfect day in Barcelona?
I think now that summer is coming, I always get more excited of being in the city. Like there are more plans. Now, especially, I would say that maybe in May and June, there are a lot of things happening in the city. There's a lot of like events and shows and concerts, which is really nice. Normal day, like let's say just a Saturday, I love to go for a coffee. Then I like to go to Las Aguas, which is road in the mountains that you have like beautiful views from Barcelona. I love going there for a hike. And then I also like enjoy a lot going for dinner in Gracia or in Elborn. I love these two neighbors. Yeah, it's just like the vibe is great there. And there's always like new restaurants opening and new things and places to go. So I really like to discover these new places.
Do you have any hidden gems, any favorite spots?
So a close friend of mine opened a cafe in Poblenou called Bricks, and I'm not promoting this because of my friend is my friend, but it's a really nice cafe, and their coffee is really good. So I would say that's my favorite now, even though it's far from where I live. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I've also been to Bricks. It's very, very good. So what I'm going to do as part of this podcast is I'm creating kind of a curated list of hotspots in the city from the
Nice.
guests of Built in Barcelona. So I'll be adding Bricks to the list.
Yeah, you should.
And you mentioned that Gracia is one of your favorite areas of the city.
Yeah, yeah. I think that it's very creative and artistic. It's a bit more bohemic.
Yeah, Bohemian.
Yeah, and maybe it's a bit more crowded to live there.
Mm.
Need a place that is a bit more quieter, but I just love spending an afternoon there or going for dinner or going during the day. There's
Yeah.
a lot of things happening and it has a really nice vibe. And Born, I also like it. I would say that maybe it's more touristic,
Mm.
but going there at night for dinner is beautiful as well.
Yeah, like I always have the feeling when I go to Bourne that I don't go enough. Like every
Yeah,
time I
same.
go, I'm like, I should come here more. Like it's
Yeah,
almost romantic, right? With the
yeah,
Gothic style buildings, and
yeah.
it's just such a beautiful part of the city. It is a little bit overrun with tourists from time to time, but there are
Mhm.
still those kind of artisan streets where all the
Exactly.
shops, like you'll have leather workers actually working on the leather in the store
Yeah,
and all these kind of little art shops and things, and it's really idyllic.
yeah. It seems that you're going back in years and you're just visiting the old Barcelona, even though you also find these souvenir shops now. But I don't know, it's a bit of a time travel experience.
And I mean, maybe this is a tricky question because you're from here and you've lived here many years, but is there anything about living here that still surprises you?
Yeah, that one is hard. I think that what I like the most of Barcelona is where it is located, like what you have around the city. I mean, the city is great, but I really like that in winter you just go for a quick ride, less than 2 hours, and you are skiing in the mountains. In summer, you can either go to Lampurdà in Costa Brava or even to the Balearics, and you go to beautiful beaches. You can also go for hikes in the Pyrenees, in Almontseny, in Montserrat. There's a lot of things, interesting things and nice things to do around Barcelona that I think that's what I like the most and still surprise me the most about the city itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I think I've said before that my favorite part of living here is actually Catalonia. I love
Hmm.
living in Catalonia. I think it's just such an amazing place, and it really has a bit of everything,
Yeah,
regardless of what you're into, whether it's mountains, beach, just nature, good food. It's just got a bit of everything.
exactly.
Is there, I mean, being Catalan, is there anything of being Catalan that you're most proud of?
El pan tomate. It's so good. Every time there's someone coming visiting, I make sure that they try pan con tomate.
Yes, that is a very good thing from here. Pan con tomate is very, very nice.
Yeah, and I love the language too. I really like Catalan. I I think that it's a language that bring people together. You travel anywhere in the world and you hear Catalan and you just get this excitement. Or you know a friend that is learning the language and everyone like gets emotional about it. I also really like the language.
Yeah. It's actually amazing how much you hear it when you travel.
Yeah.
Like I've been in different parts of the world and you hear people speaking Catalan and it's like, wow, that's, for
We are
such a small
everywhere, but it's a
region.
small place.
Yeah, you guys really get around, which is an amazing thing to see. Like you really hear of kind of communities with their own language losing that
Yeah.
over time. And I think one thing that's really struck me about Catalonia is you guys are so proud of the language, and you really work hard to retain it. And I think
Yeah.
that's a lovely thing.
Yeah, people fight a lot to keep Catalan.
Yeah, as you should, as you should. So it's on my list to start learning Catalan. Still battling with Spanish, but we'll see how it goes.
Nice. Maybe next interview we can do it in Catalan, Kris.
Maybe that's a good challenge for me. So yeah, interesting that you mentioned next interview actually. Because yeah, would love to have you on the show again in the future to see how you're progressing, what's happening with Aran Studio. In the meantime, where can people follow your journey, or where can they learn more about you?
So we have a website. It's madebyaran.com. We're redesigning it, so hopefully it's also gonna have a fresh look soon. They can also follow on Instagram in Made by Aran, that's the handle, or in LinkedIn. I'm trying to be more proactive in LinkedIn as well and share more. It's hard to have all the hats and be able to do everything, but also I promise myself this year that we'll do more personal marketing also to show the work we do. And we have a newsletter as well that I send every month where I share learnings, updates, and news about the studio. And people can sign up also in the website.
Cool. Well, I'll post all the links to all of those different touch points along with this episode, so that people can easily find you. And in closing, any final advice for creatives looking to carve out their own space in this industry?
I would recommend them. It's my experience, but I really like to learn from people first. So I would recommend them to get a lot of experience if they are starting, reach out to people that inspires them, but also to not wait to have the perfect moment to start something on their own if they want to. I think that it took me a while to make the decision because I was very scared, and now it's been the best thing. So I think there's never the perfect time, right? So if you want to do it, you better save a bit and then you do it.
Yeah, save a bit being the most important aspect.
Yeah.
Well, Claudia, thank you so much for joining. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing your insights and experiences. So thank you for sharing those. That's it for this episode of Built in Barcelona. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe and share it with anybody who loves design, branding, or indeed just Barcelona and the creative scene here. You can also find clips and updates on our LinkedIn at Built in Barcelona. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.